Vice President J.D. Vance scorches European leaders over free speech at the Munich Security Conference. Also, Mayor Eric Adam sits down with Tom Homan on Fox and Friends, defends himself after that bombshell scandal dropped yesterday. We're going to get to both of these stories, but first let's start with what J.D. Vance had to say to European leaders.
And unfortunately, when I look at Europe today, it's sometimes not so clear what happened to some of the Cold War's winners. I look to Brussels, where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media during times of civil unrest the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. This last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law. Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizen suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
So obviously we don't talk about Europe that much, but one thing that you guys should know, just bottom line here, is that when it comes to free speech, it's almost non-existent when it comes to European nations. Because if you put up something on social media that in America is obviously free speech, they can arrest you. And it's happened plenty of times. We've seen some of the viral clips on social media. If someone criticizes the actual government or they criticize someone, you can be arrested for that. So as far as free speech goes, it's literally in the trash as it pertains to those European nations. So of course, J.D. Vance going on stage, calling that out to their face is very controversial. And I'm telling you, they didn't like it. Now, here's another thing that he brought up that I think you'll find value in.
I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy. And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing people, dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk.
Yeah, so I'm glad he brought up Elon Musk, even though he was joking. There's some truth to that. Elon Musk has the ability to say what he wants to say. They don't have to listen. They don't have to react to it. They choose to. And they've gotten to the point where they want to lock up Elon Musk. We're talking about European leaders, by the way. So you want to lock him up for him speaking his mind. That makes no sense. Now, in America, you agree with me on that. But in other countries, they don't agree, right? They believe whatever comes out of your mouth, if they don't agree with it, you should be in prison. And that's why you're seeing globally, a lot of countries out there, they're shifting more to conservative principles because the left wing and the liberal and just this government trying to censor and control everything, the citizens are just fed up.
But what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters. There's no room for firewalls. You either uphold the principle or you don't. Europeans, the people, have a voice. European leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future. You can embrace what your people tell you, even when it's surprising, even when you don't agree. And if you do so, you can face the future with certainty and with confidence, knowing that the nation stands behind each of you. And that, to me, is the great magic of democracy. It's not in these stone buildings or beautiful hotels. It's not even in the great institutions that we have built together as a shared society. To believe in democracy is to understand that each of our citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful fights will secure very little.
Yeah, so clearly, I'm sure you agree with everything that he said. I didn't hear anything in there that was controversial. However, the German defense minister by the name of Boris, I'm not even going to butcher his last name, he felt that his entire speech, that is J.D. Vance's speech, was unacceptable. Listen.
And if the vice president had the opportunity to switch on his TV set when he arrived yesterday, he would have seen one of those candidates in primetime TV. By the way, we even admit media that spread Russian propaganda, and the representatives of the federal government answer their questions. Nobody is excluded. But democracy does not mean that a vociferous minority will automatically be right, and they cannot decide what truth is. It does not mean that anyone can say anything, and democracy must be able to defend itself against extremists that try to destroy it. I am happy to live in Europe, where this democracy is defended every day against its internal and external enemies. And therefore, I would like to explicitly contradict and oppose the impression that Vice President Vance suggested here, that our democracies oppress and silence minorities.
Yeah, so he's just really saying what we've always heard as the opposite side of this debate when it comes to free speech. They believe they're protecting democracy by censoring people. That is their justification. They believe moderation on these social media platforms. They believe censoring even hate speech is protecting democracy. And the issue is, it's all up to somebody's perception what really is hate speech, if you think about it, especially on social media. And at the end of the day, like Elon Musk pointed out in that disastrous interview with Don Lemon, if somebody says something on social media, is it breaking the law? Now, obviously, in these European nations, they got smart. The government, that is, they changed the laws. But in America, that has not happened. So, again, I'm not surprised that this is how they reacted. Now, here's what Charlie Kirk had to say about J.D. Vance going to the Munich Security Conference. He says his message of liberation for ordinary men and women in Europe is why he arrived there. The new American government wants a strong, free, thriving Europe, and we know that will never happen. And we know that will never happen as long as they live under the heel of transatlantic globalists. The new American government is going to support free speech. So if Europeans want to keep benefiting from an alliance with us, they had better support real free speech too. No more arresting people for Facebook posts saying that they wish there was less immigration. No more SWAT teams breaking down the door of someone who tweeted their anger about a migrant rape gang. The new American government is going to support real democracy. If the people want to vote to restrict immigration or leave the European Union or anything else, they have the right to vote for a party that will do that without having their party banned or their elections canceled. Over 141,000 American soldiers fought and died to liberate Europe from fascist tyranny 80 years ago. And this administration will do everything in its power to ensure their sacrifice is not squandered by globalist tyrants in Brussels, Munich, or Paris. Now, since we brought up Elon Musk, and I thought that joke was funny from the vice president, here is CNN with Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher, which both of them, I think they really do need mental help.
And Kara, I do have to ask about a change in his Twitter handle, which I noted very deadpan earlier this week, which of course, you know, played right into the fact that he wants to make us all laugh like we're 7-year-old boys. I have a young boy, so maybe I get the humor. I guess I'm not going to repeat the HB handle, but talk about that vis-a-vis his personality, Elon's personality.
I think the 7-year-old is charitable. I mean, one of the things that he has is he loves dank memes and jokes, and he loves to make jokes himself and then laugh at his own jokes. And then all the people who work for him laugh at him, and therefore he thinks he's funny. And he's not funny. He's sometimes funny, I guess. Well, I never thought so. But he likes to do this. He likes to engage in sort of these juvenile little pranks. And when he's not doing that, he likes to insult people. And all kidding aside, we don't mind being called these names, but it's a 53-year-old man does not do this. I mean, or this one does. And so he just this is what he likes. He likes to slag people. I guess it's part of video game culture or something, but I find it unusual for someone of his age to be such a juvenile.
So this is a great example of why the Democratic Party, they have lost young men, probably men in general, because a lot of people on social media, especially men, find that entertaining. And she gets onto the news and has to give this whole serious response about how stupid it really is. And it just shows you that, again, they have not learned anything from that embarrassing loss. Oh, well, Trump only won by a 1.5% margin. A loss is a loss. And not only did you lose the presidency, but you lost Congress too.
You both talked about Musk in the context of the unified CEO theory. Can you explain what that means, Kara?
Sure.
And what does it mean for his takeover of government?
Well, the idea that they know best. It's dictator is another word for it. Essentially, most corporations are run by a compelling CEO, and sometimes, in the case of tech companies, they have a complete control. Like at Facebook, for example, or Meta, you cannot fire Mark Zuckerberg. He has total control over the company via the way he's organized the stock. And so the idea is that there's a single CEO who decides things. It's also sort of founder mode, that they get to make changes, they get to wreck things, and it's for the good of everybody. And so it's an idea that we should have a strong, it's very similar to what's happening with the presidency. There should be a stronger president rather than the other co-equal branches. It shouldn't be quite that equal. In fact, the executive should have more power. And that's something that's been growing in politics for a long time.
Yeah. And again, this is a great example of what you guys are going to continue to see, especially as people, or really the Democratic Party, fights Trump on every single executive order. Because this is really an experiment about how much power does the executive branch really have. Now, they claim that Trump wants all of the power, but what they don't understand is all he's doing is maximizing the power that he's been granted by the U.S. Constitution. And Congress should do the same, just like SCOTUS will do the same. But again, it's like they take these issues and the message they run with is never going to land for the average American out there. Now, I'm excited to get to this next story. We already talked about Mayor Eric Adams last night, right? The lead prosecutor resigned because basically she believes there was an agreement. If Mayor Eric Adams complies with what ICE wants to do in his city, then the charges will be dropped against him. This is really damning information if proven to be true. And here's what he had to say about all that on Fox and Friends with Tom Homan sitting right next to him.
My attorney, Alex Spira, one of the top trial attorneys in the country. Imagine him going inside saying that the only way Mayor Adams is going to assist in immigration, which I was calling for since 2022, is if you drop the charges. That's quid pro quo. That's a crime. It took her 3 weeks to report in front of her a criminal action. Right. Come on, this is silly.
All right, now the one thing I will give him credit for, regardless if the corruption charges are true or false, the bottom line is that he's the only mayor that came out and criticized Joe Biden for opening the border. He's the only one. And that's why he was the only one that was hit with these charges.
You know, Mayor, the way this particular case is being handled right now, they can refile the charges at any time. If you don't help them, they could refile the charges. And
that's not what they said. That's not what they.
They can refile the charges.
No,
right?
First of all, I don't get into the legalese. I have an attorney to do that, and I pay a lot for that. What we need to be clear on, if the mayor of the city of New York is unable to collaborate, deal with intelligence information, sit down with my state and federal agencies and sit down to coordinate for public safety, we're still under the terrorist threat. We still have illegal gangs in our community that's bringing about destruction that ICE is attempting to weed out. If I can't coordinate that, that's a public safety issue, and we should put public safety first.
All right, so that is the message that he's running with, of course. And I want to get to a part of this entire interview that I think sheds a lot of light on his relationship with Tom Homan and their agreement about how these illegal aliens will be handled, particularly individuals that have been committing crimes. And there is some level of disagreement, and I will explain why I'm with Tom Homan on that. But let's go ahead and take a look.
You have a left-wing legislature. Everybody knows it. And for some reason, nobody votes in New York, so the same left-wingers get in every time. But if you had your druthers, would New York City be a sanctuary city?
What we will always be. This has always been a city of immigrants.
So you think it should be?
No. Let me explain, because this is what's getting conflated all the time. Where the sanctuary city is stated that if you're in this city and you're paying taxes, you should have access to the services. What I asked the city council to do, change the bill that was already in place and modify it that if you are committing a crime, that we should be able to collaborate with ICE, even on civil enforcement, if you have committed a crime. That part of the bill is wrong.
I don't agree. I think sanctuary is a sanctuary of criminals. But we walked out of the meeting yesterday, and getting back in Rikers Island is a game changer. We can get, not only we get the bad guys before they hit the street, the intelligence of how the TDA operates, where they're operating, all this intelligence they gather at Rikers Island, we'll have access to. But no, I'm strictly against sanctuary city status just because I think sanctuaries are for criminals.
Now, what Tom Homan is saying is just spot on, right? If you remove the emotion out of it and you look at logic and how criminals think, they would love sanctuary cities because there's so much protection for them. Which is why the mayor basically is saying he wants the laws changed within his city to make sure that if people are committing crimes, regardless of their citizenship status, that they will be held accountable. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm with Tom Homan on this. Sanctuary cities put the conditions in place for criminals to take advantage of. That's just the bottom line. And if people would just come into the country legally through the right channels, then we wouldn't need a sanctuary city. Now, there was so much that they talked about, but I just want to get to some of the things that really stood out to me. This next one is what they had to say about the governor of New York, and let's just say Mayor Eric Adams was silent. Listen to this.
Governor Hochul is an embarrassment of the position she holds. She stands on media after someone's burned alive on a subway. She stands in front of TV camera and says, I think criminal aliens should be removed too. But she's got the green light law. The men and women of ICE and Border Patrol, when they pull a vehicle over, law enforcement, you're in law enforcement your whole career. What's the first thing you would do? You run the license plate number. Are these wanted? Is there a warrant for these people? Who are they? Are they dangerous? Is that car stolen? All these things, right? Do you know ICE and CBP can't run DMV data on New York State license plate? So they're pulling over people not even know who the hell they are.
Is that the green light law?
The green light law. So she, on one point, she's saying, well, I think criminals should be removed too, but then she locks us out of DMV data. Right. That'd be like us locking officers out of the NCIC, the Fed zone. Would we do that? No, because officer safety is paramount. She's putting the men and women at ICE at risk every day. The job's already dangerous. So Governor Hochul, she needs to be removed. Everybody needs to be removed. It needs to be her. She supports sanctuary policies.
I don't know anyone who thinks she's doing a good job. She's an embarrassment.
Yeah, this is just common sense. And once again, people in New York should be outraged that the leadership is not respecting law enforcement, because if they don't, how can they truly protect citizens? I just don't see how that is a reality, but that is just me. Now, speaking of leadership that has failed New Yorkers, here is the AG, Letitia James, with her public press conference this morning, screaming about Trump, Elon, and DOGE.
Payments to the state of New York and to states all across this nation. It is unacceptable, unconstitutional, ultra-vires. They have exceeded their authority. And so it's important that attorneys general representing our respective states stand up and enforce the rule of law, because Elon Musk, individuals at the Treasury, and the President of these United States is not above the law. And we will continue. You know, as attorneys general, we've been preparing for this. This is not the outcome that we wanted.
Yeah, so the problem with people like Letitia James is she's made her entire world, her life, her purpose, her career about one person, and that is President Trump. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is someone who's sad, pitiful, I think has a mental health issue. I think when you obsess over someone that much, I can't imagine you're living a happy life. That's just me, my own personal opinion. I get we disagree. I get, in some sense, politically, you're after people. I could reason with that. But she goes way beyond it, and she's literally wanting to target everything that has to do with Trump. I just don't see how she's a happy individual. And I believe it's going to come full circle for her, which we've been able to witness here recently. And of course, since I'm on the topic of people who has made their entire life about Trump and now, I guess, Elon Musk, here is Rachel Mark Cuban Maddow getting owned by Jesse Waters because she tries to push this lie that Trump was trying to pay $400 million to Elon Musk for Tesla Cybertrucks.
Elon Musk has apparently somehow convinced the United States government, specifically the United States Department of State, that the taxpayers of the United States of America should spend $400 million buying, quote, armored Tesla production units. Isn't it great and definitely not at all illegal or profoundly corrupt? Definitely not ripping us all off to pay themselves, right?
Donald Trump didn't give that contract to Elon Musk. Joe Biden gave it to him.
And what's so interesting about them running that story, which was actually a couple of nights ago, is that the Trump administration came out and said the contract was canceled. So, you know, they're so obsessed with President Trump. They don't even take time to truly actually look at the facts. But wait a minute, they are the individuals who are all about fact checking. They're all about truth. But here's another example where they are not. All right, so this takes us to the question of this video. I'd love for you guys to answer in the comments section below. What did you think of what J.D. Vance had to say in that speech to European leaders? He clearly called them out to their face. This is about free speech. We know America is number one on the list in regards to that. We believe in it the most out of any other country. But I want to know what your thoughts are, and also about what that defense minister had to say in response when he felt that it was unacceptable. Let me know what your thoughts are about all that in the comment section below. Now, in this video, we showed you how Tom Homan and Mayor Eric Adams both are collaborating in an effort to get illegal aliens out of New York City. But of course, that might be overshadowed by this new bombshell scandal where the lead prosecutor resigned because she refuses to drop charges against the mayor. Now, if you missed out on that story and some of the details, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.